Pokémon remakes prior to the 2010s were made out of necessity due to the Game Boy games not being compatible with the Game Boy Advance. With their remakes, Pokémon from the Game Boy days were back in the migration pool and all was well in the Pokémon fandom. But that led to some questions. What about the Game Boy Advance games? Would Ruby and Sapphire get remade? And if they did, would they be sprite-based on the DS or make the jump to 3D as the previous Pokémon games, X and Y, had pioneered for the handheld series? All these questions were answered on May 7th, 2014, when Nintendo uploaded a brief trailer announcing that Pokémon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were on their way and to the 3DS. It was the name of the games, box arts, and release window for November of that year. But something stood out. The titular Groudon and Kyogre looked different. There were a couple familiar symbols on the Pokémon though. On Groudon's arm, it's what appeared to be an Omega symbol, and on Kyogre's fin was an Alpha symbol. The Alpha and Omega symbols come from the Greek alphabet, and they each sit on the opposite end of it, signifying the beginning and the end. Those who played Ruby and Sapphire and use a bit of critical thinking would put the two and two together. Groudon and Kyogre would be the beings in Pokémon to bring a horrifying end or a disastrous beginning, which references Groudon's drought ability bringing an end to life with its devastating heat waves, and Kyogre's drizzle ability bringing torrential waves to start the world anew. And these new forms, if compared to Mega Evolution and given a new ability, would be terrifyingly powerful. Pokémon X and Y released a year prior, and with them brought Mega Evolution, an evolution that went further beyond what was thought possible for Pokémon to obtain. Prior remakes were built off the engines of the previous entries in the series. The remakes of Red and Blue, Fire Red and Leaf Green, were built using the engine used to create the original Ruby and Sapphire. Knowing this, fans could expect two things. One was that the games would run on the same engine as X and Y, and two, these Pokémon were getting new forms, Mega Evolution. Or so we thought. Nintendo dropped a video on May 10th showing us the first gameplay footage of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, ORAS for short. It was Groudon and Kyogre activating their abilities outside of Sootopolis City, and that was it. Like, we just get the announcement, and then 3 days later they drop a little teaser of the game. I mean, it was appreciated, so we got some semblance of what the game looked like, but at the same time, there wasn't much to look at. Regardless, we had to wait a month. After that, E3 2014 was here. Our first gameplay trailer of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire was here, and it was beautiful. Even with this sub 2-minute trailer, we got more info than we expected. I am a huge fan of Generation 3 and love its games, so when the trailer was revealed, I cried. It showed the altered Groudon and Kyogre as cave paintings, implying there was some part of the legend, which they were in the originals, but here, despite just being made for promotion, they seemed to have greater importance. Then we really saw what the games looked like. We got a first look at the 3 Hoenn starters as well as Brendan and May's new designs, in both of their chibi and in-battle models. We were shown Maxie and Archie's redesign through their in-battle models as well. Gym Leader portraits returned, as well as confirmation that Mega Evolution returned through Sceptile and Swampert gaining the ability to Mega Evolve. We also saw Groudon and Kyogre evolve as well. Steven Stone was revealed in his chibi form, and we got the release date being November 21st, 2014. The games, in fact, were running on the same engine as X and Y did, and they looked beautiful. The hype was crazy. Even with this, there were so many questions. How would the other characters look with their redesigns? What role would Steven play since he was the champion in Ruby and Sapphire but not in Emerald? Would he be tied to Mega Evolution since he is affiliated with Rare Stones? And if he did, would he have Mega Evolution? Would Wally's arc be affected by the remakes? Would Pokemon contests return? If they did, would they improve? Would the story of Team Magma and Team Aqua change with Mega Evolution being involved? Would elements from Emerald be included, and if so, how many? Would the Battle Frontier return? These and so many questions were pouring out of fans. We were desperate for answers. Throughout the rest of the year, CoroCoro magazine had its usual leaks to give us information we were starving for, but was officially revealed through another trailer and some beautiful promotional art. There was some crazy speculation with CoroCoro leaks. There was one that had a shot of Steven with his key art, and under him on a separate window on the page was a Mega Charizard X. So people just assumed he would have a Mega Charizard on his team. Not gonna lie, it threw me off too. Cast its doubt on me with that. I was like, Game Freak, why would you give him Charizard? The fanbase resonated with each other that it was weird and didn't make sense, but because it was Mega Evolution, which used the Keystones, we thought it would make sense for Steven because he's all about Rare Stones. In hindsight, duh, it sounds ridiculous, but can you blame us? We were all consumed by hype, and if you piece things together, it's not hard to come to that conclusion. A handful of trailers were put out that showed off the new Mega Evolutions. Most notably was Mega Rayquaza. Rayquaza is already a great design based on the Leviathan, some fascinating lore to it. Mega Evolve the dude and you got one of the coolest Pokemon designs ever created. Absolutely sick design. It highlighted the yellow from its original design with the tendrils coming off of its horns. The orange orbs along its body are a very nice replacement for the yellow rings. Yet the yellow rings were still preserved here by being a part of its aforementioned tendrils. And when it performs its signature move, Dragon Ascent, it takes the shape of a triangle, the delta symbol, which is the 4th letter in the Greek alphabet. And it turned out to be one of the most powerful Pokemon ever created, especially because it lost its flying weakness and can hold an item while it was Mega Evolved. It was beyond busted, to the point where Smogon, a group that focuses on competitive battling, had to create a tier above the highest one, being Ubers, called Anything Goes. Alpha Sapphire opens with Professor Birch speaking about the world of Pokemon as the camera pans over wild Pokemon. This immediately shows off not only the 3D Pokemon, but the surprising amount of cinematography the game has. This game has some nice camera work, especially for a Pokemon game. Sometimes, if you read a city entrance sign, the camera will shift and slowly pan over it. It's touches like this that I love, because we get a bird's eye view with it being a mostly top-down Pokemon game. It's a nice change of pace and a welcome addition. And the game's cutscenes also benefited from the camera work, making the game feel more cinematic during key moments in the story, something that GBA couldn't do. Ruby and Sapphire were nice-looking games for the Game Boy Advance, with its bright pixel art making the world come to life, something the Game Boy couldn't do and Game Boy Color couldn't fully realize. The GBA really helped immerse the player in the world with its visuals, however, there was only so much the game could do. Cutscenes were static, character expressions non-existent, and lighting was all the same. With the jump-in power from the 3DS, all this was realized. Camera movement would emphasize a scene, character expression and animation would give life to its characters, and light could pour in from above with its outdoor settings. And continuing with the opening to the game, the player, choosing either Brendan or May, arrives in Littleroot Town and quickly runs into Professor Birch, who is being chased. Brendan or May, who I'm just calling Bay from this point on, saves him by choosing a Pokemon from his bag. He thanks Bay for the help and lets them keep the Pokemon after seeing the connection they have with them. Bay journeys through cities, towns, and the wilderness to catch Pokemon and battle the most powerful trainers. Bay will help out beginning trainer Wally, who is a sick kid who became a powerful trainer in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. In Oros, Wally's story is a little more in-depth, which is improved in cutscenes allowing the models to emote and alter outfits. This is notable because at the beginning of the game, Wally blushes in his cutscenes due to his lack of confidence and he wears a jacket that's buttoned up. After training throughout the game, he has a confident expression, doesn't blush, and his jacket is unbuttoned as if to not be closed off. And the cherry on top is that his Ralts, his first Pokemon which Bay helped catch, is able to Mega Evolve, showing Wally's true potential as a trainer and his strong bond with his new Mega Gallade. It doesn't seem like much, but having the 3D models replace the sprites really improves the story potential just for allowing simple changes in character designs and emotions. One of Wally's showings of confidence as a trainer happens in Mauville City, where he battles Bay to show he is ready to take on the city's gym. And it's worth mentioning that Mauville City has had a drastic change. Here, Mauville City is the hub of Hoenn, modernizing it to be like Lumiose City in Pokemon X and Y, further represented by a small tower representing Hoenn and Kalos' ties. Mauville was very simple in Ruby and Sapphire. It had a Pokemon Center, gym, bike shop, and game corner. It got completely overhauled into essentially a giant mall. Everything from the GBA Mauville is still here, except the game corner because gambling to children. Mauville Hills is an apartment complex located on the 2nd floor of the city where NPCs can be interacted with and battled. Mauville houses the Battle Institute, where battles can take place, but 7 must be completed consecutively regardless of losses. Upon completion, a rank is given depending on win-loss ratio. There are also inverse battles where super effective moves are not very effective and vice versa. 2 move tutors have their own stall where they reside. One who will teach a Pokemon one of the pledge moves and the other will teach an eligible Pokemon Blast Burn, Hydro Cannon, or Frenzy Plant. Another area is the food court. Battles are started because people want to sit in your seat while you're just waiting for your food. You get certain items depending on how well you do. There's a man who teaches Meloetta or Keldeo their form-changing moves, as well as a woman who can change Thundurus, Tornadus, and Landorus into their Therian forms. And there's a lot more packed in this city too. Along the journey, if needing breaks from battling, Bay can enter Pokemon contests returning from the GBA games. Contests were designed to show off Pokemon's moves. While they were the best visuals Pokemon had on the handheld at that point, the GBA can only emulate a magical dog show with superpowers so effectively. It's safe to assume most people who tried contests quickly moved on. I know I did. The 3DS helped mitigate the lackluster nature of contests some by having the visuals necessary to assist in making them more enjoyable to watch. but they also included Mega Evolution to help spice things up. With enough of an appeal from the judges in the second round, certain Pokemon could Mega Evolve and show off a move with a special background, enhancing the spectacle of contests even more. To increase the attraction of contests just a little bit further, a new character, Lycia, would be part of a newly added side quest where she can be challenged to a contest after beating all Master Rank contests. Once beaten, she will reward the player with a special decoration for their secret base. And speaking of secret bases, these two are improved, and they took a route I didn't think Game Freak would. Players can use the TM secret power to dig into rock or cut away shrubbery to reveal a hidden room where they can claim their own and decorate them, now known as super secret bases. Decorations can be obtained by speaking with NPCs, purchasing them, and completing side quests. There are so many secret bases to find and decorate. There's even an island that the player can find that is nothing but secret bases. There are many secret base locations and decorations to collect, making every secret base unique. Secret pals make bases even more fun. When interacting with another player's character in their base, they can offer a battle, as well as have different skills. Depending on their chosen trainer class and rank, they can give you decorations, hatch your eggs faster, level up your Pokemon, boost effort values, find items like berries or evolution stones, among other things. Lastly, there's Capture the Flag. A flag sits in each base, and obtaining it raises your secret base rank. Raising your rank will strengthen the abilities of your secret pals. In Ruby and Sapphire, the way to share a player's secret base would be mix records using a link cable with another player. If a player didn't know someone else with a copy of Ruby and Sapphire, there was no sharing secret bases. But thanks to the 3DS, ORAS improves this exponentially. Using the 3DS's built-in Street Pass feature, people with copies of the game will automatically download other super secret bases when passing them. The other way to obtain people's secret bases are creating QR codes and sharing them with others online. This forewent the need for 3DS friend codes, so players could just download whatever codes they wanted from whoever they wanted. This was such a good decision by Game Freak to allow players the freedom by sharing their bases without restriction, really taking advantage of the 3DS hardware and online features, bringing Pokemon players around the world closer together. During the story, Bay comes across a crime syndicate who wishes to change the world for what they believe will improve it. For a unique case, this set of Pokemon games has version-exclusive teams. There's Team Magma, who opposes Bay in Omega Ruby, and there's Team Aqua, who opposes them in Alpha Sapphire. Team Magma wishes to expand the land, while Team Aqua wishes to expand the sea. It might not seem like much, but it's nice to have another reason to have different versions, aside from just a handful of version exclusives. It helps the game stand out more. While the story beats are the same, albeit with very minor tweaks, it does help validate the version exclusives more and assists in a replay feeling less repetitive. And the remakes helps to flesh out the antagonist's plan. In the original Ruby and Sapphire, Maxie and Archie respectively, wished to expand their desired natural element, and that was it. We as players had to stop them because we don't know why actually, we just had to. But in the remakes, thankfully the story is fleshed out. Team Magma wishes to expand the land so that humanity may flourish. More people, crops, businesses, etc. Team Aqua wishes to expand the sea to help Pokemon, mostly those whose aquatic ecosystems have been ruined beyond repair, to create new livable habitats for them. This takes the originals from being just plot devices and helps the antagonists feel more like three-dimensional characters, working out well considering these games use 3D models, so they're truly three-dimensional characters. And they're able to use the Mega Evolution gimmick teased in the intro movie to help them be just a little more threatening. And there's also the topic of the red orb and blue orb. In the originals, the team leader gave their box legendary the opposite colored orb, angering the creatures and causing the climax of the story. This seemed silly to some degree because we as players would assume that the leaders would know this would happen, considering all the time, effort, and planning it would take to enact everything they wish to achieve. Remakes clean this up nicely by simply swapping which orb the team leader chooses to steal. The red orb now goes to Groudon, and the blue orb now goes to Kyogre. Being exposed to the correctly colored orb now causes their own version of Mega Evolution called Primal Reversion. The two box art legends are given some new lore with these remakes. When the world was young, they were incredibly powerful creatures that were in their primal state, but as the years went on, they became weaker, changing to the forms from the original versions. I really like this addition because, sure, it's just Mega Evolution, but it's tied into the lore as something that's always existed. So it would have made sense that the box art legends in the original were in their weaker state. I know the originals and remakes are two different worlds, one with Mega Evolution and one without, but I just wanted to point out that theoretically it could have worked for the originals if they went that route. After the teams are defeated, Steven will hand Bay the Eon Flute. This enables soaring. Earlier in the story, the two trainers encountered one of the Lati twins, with it joining the Pokemon party. With the Eon Flute, Bay can fly freely across the fully rendered map of the Hoenn region. It is beautiful. But maybe I'm just biased because Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald were my childhood, and being able to freely fly over it was something I never knew I wanted and wished to return in every Pokemon game since. Soaring really brings together the theming of nature as well as the legendary Pokemon while traversing Hoenn, with Groudon representing land, Kyogre representing the sea, and Rayquaza representing the sky. While soaring, the player can do a couple little tricks, which is cute. A couple handful of Pokemon can be encountered while in the air, and Mirage Islands can be discovered. The GBA games had Mirage Island, which was incredibly rare to have appeared, basically never existed to the point it was rarer than finding a shiny Pokemon. And all that was there were Wynot and a Lychee Berry. It was never worth it. However, there are 5 types of Mirage Islands, one appearing every day. Items can be found at these locations, including rare ones like evolutionary items. Wild Pokemon not native at Hoenn can be caught on these islands as well. Mirage spots are on special islands or in the air that have legendary Pokemon. Almost 20 legendary Pokemon can be caught while soaring, all with pretty specific requirements for them to even show up, let alone trying to catch them. Some require the player to have 3 Pokemon with maximum number of EVs on their team or owning a level 100 Pokemon. With the main threat stopped, Bay can finish the gym challenge and battle the Elite Four. And yes, Stephen hails as the champion who must be defeated to complete the game. Once beaten, Bay enters the Hall of Fame and becomes the Pokemon champion, finishing the main story. But yeah, let's get back to Parallel Worlds. That's discussed in the post-game story, the Delta episode. It formally introduces newcomer Zinnia. She was occasionally teased throughout the main game, keeping her a mystery as to who she was until the Delta episode began. The Delta episode, appropriately, focuses on Rayquaza as well as the main conflict of which a meteor is on a crash course for Earth, specifically Hoenn. Zinnia talks about parallel worlds where Mega Evolution existed in one, but not the other. This is referring to Ruby and Sapphire, which did not have Mega Evolution, as opposed to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which does. Some people liked the idea, some people didn't. It wasn't talked about anywhere else before, so it felt like it came out of nowhere and not all too important since it's not followed up again. Though it does explain why she doesn't want to end the conflict by warping the meteor somewhere else, which was the method originally decided. We got new lore regarding Rayquaza and how it was given great power by the Draconids and ancient people in order to protect them. Zinnia steals the keystones from multiple trainers and uses them to summon Rayquaza and perform a ritual to Mega Evolve it to stop the meteor. She's unsuccessful, but Bay, who acquired the meteorite during the story, has it eaten by Rayquaza, causing it to Mega Evolve. Rayquaza is an optional catch and takes Bay into space to destroy the meteor, and out from the meteor comes Deoxys, one of the most difficult Pokemon to obtain at the time due to it being a limited time event in the mid-2000s. After Deoxys is caught or defeated, Bay returns to a peaceful Hoenn. With the story finished, Bay is able to go to the Battle Resort and take on challenges at the Battle Mason. In Emerald, the enhanced version of Ruby and Sapphire, the game was littered with battle tents, replacing many of the Pokemon contest halls. As Game Freak realized, this side mode wasn't very popular. These battle tents were created to train the player to ease them into the battle frontier after beating the game. However, despite being bite-sized sessions, these were nothing compared to the battle frontier. It houses 7 facilities, each with its own rule sets and gimmicks. This post-game content is for those dedicated to take on a real challenge, and they will find it in Emerald. Sadly, the battle frontier was not included in Oras. This was a big disappointment regarding the post-game. The Battle Resort plays a remix of the Battle Frontier theme, and The Kick in the Teeth has a scale model of the Battle Frontier with a sign that reads, "The Battle Frontier project has started," which, at least to me, hinted at DLC. There was that possibility since Game Freak included it, since they were probably rushed to work on the next project, but despite that, I didn't expect it. It's just a real shame because it could have made a really good game even better. Even with no Battle Frontier, I still put a lot of time into the Battle Mason with a bunch of teams I built. Online battling was brought to Hoenn from X and Y unchanged. The PSS and all its features were here and accounted for. Pokemon Me and Super Training were brought back as well, allowing for some Hoenn favorites to be loved more and trained easier. The BuzzNav was a cute little addition that would have a mini newsfeed constantly run, highlighting Bay's various feats or mention when and where hordes were available. But the star of the show when it came to the bottom screen features was the DexNav. It uses images ripped straight from the GBA games, a very nice nostalgic touch. Pokemon that appear in the DexNav could be lucky enough to have egg moves or hidden abilities. Their Hello item and first move can also be viewed. Once a Pokemon is encountered, it appears on the DexNav. So once you find a route that has only a 4% encounter rate, you can use the DexNav and never worry about that terrible rate again. It is incredibly useful for pulling for certain natures or genders. Pokemon encounters can be chained, and the more the same one is chained, the higher likelihood a shiny would appear. X and Y introduced 3D movement due to the 3DS's circle path, but only when using roller skates and the bicycle. Run? You're now stuck on the grid and moving in one of 8 directions. Oras thankfully removed this restriction, allowing for true 3D movement and running feels smooth. To go along with the DexNav was sneaking. Gently moving the circle pad would cause Bay to start tiptoeing. Certain Pokemon could be visible in the overworld and be encountered, but only through the sneaking mechanic. Walk or run normally, they would disappear. The 3DS's power allowed for more details to be applied to the games. A minor one would be in Rustboro City, where in Ruby and Sapphire, a sign says a tunnel is close to being completed. It is noted that an X is graffitied over it. The remakes go a step further and have this X smeared across the sign. Another example would be when a player would need to access a desert to progress to the next area. They'd get the Go goggles, allowing them to enter the desert, but the goggles would be nothing more than text in the key item slot. Oros took it a step further and gave Bay cute little grey goggles with red lenses, modeled after Flygon's red eye covers. Very appropriate since Flygon's base form, Trapinch, can be found here. The moment I alluded to towards the beginning regarding the light shining down in outdoor areas happens in Petalburg Woods. I remember walking through it for the first time just saying, wow. Going from the GBA sprites to this, it was so pretty, but I never expected a place like Petalburg Woods with its creepy music to have such pretty lighting effects. It made me smile and I was happy going through the whole forest. It really set my expectations up for more beautifully surprising moments. There's so many more details like this packed in these games, but these are some of my favorites. So, Pokémon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are 10 years old. Where do they stand today compared to the rest of the series? On April 8th, 2024, Nintendo shut down the online servers for the 3DS, making all online features associated with Oros useless. And just to throw it out there, sadly, we never got our Battle Frontier DLC. The games following Oros showed up in 2016, with Pokémon Sun and Moon released to help celebrate the 20th anniversary of Pokémon. In 2018, Pokémon made the jump to HD on the Nintendo Switch with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, making them the first main series home console Pokémon games. Pokémon continues to thrive on the Switch with multiple core entries, including numerous spin-offs. While Nintendo has moved on, these 3DS games can still be enjoyed, online features notwithstanding. It is unfortunate there won't be any more 3DS Pokémon games, but they felt special being some of the first 3D games Game Freak made. And the bottom screen added some very fun and useful features. There is also the reduced portability that the non-Switch Lite systems have. Not to mention Street Pass, which was one of Nintendo's most creative features, unavailable on the Switch. While the Switch is Pokemon's present and future, it's still nice to come back to the 3DS, and the Pokemon games that made it their home. Happy 10th anniversary, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. You mean so much to me. Thank you.